Accept your death.
Yo, what's up, Bonehawk? Shujinkydink here. Welcome to a video all about Mortal Kombat 11. It was finally kind of put the nail in the coffin, and we thought that was enough to bring back the Bonehawk podcast, which we haven't done in quite some time. I am joined, as usual, by Young Hater, my good friend.
Hello. Hello.
And Young Shiro, my good friend.
Oh, hello.
So, this was kind of something that I think we thought was coming for a long time, and with a couple small updates, they finally came out and said that after over 2 years worth of support, we are moving on to our next project. And that will be it for Mortal Kombat 11. Let's start with Hater. What were your initial thoughts when you read that from NetherRealm Studios?
I think my retweet said I had to triple check that it wasn't a troll account or something because I would not. I think it was already inferred. I think that was pretty obvious, but I guess I'm just not used to them actually openly saying stuff like that. Not to jump on the bandwagon about how they don't communicate or all of that sort of stuff, but I'm just surprised they said anything about it.
Yeah,
To be honest,
it kind of hit me that same way too, that I was like, wait a minute, here's this company that hasn't been the greatest for communicating with its player base, and they're communicating with the player base? What? That's kind of, is this real?
I mean, we can probably get into more details later, but I think that might be more indicative of something else that might be happening behind the scenes. But
Yeah, that's quite possible. Shiro, how about you? I know that you hadn't played the game in quite some time, but still did get into it pretty seriously. So, you have any thoughts, surprises?
First, yeah. I mean, pretty much, I think it's kind of the same, right? Read it and was like, oh. Part of me it kind of wasn't surprised because I figured that with the release of Ultimate, that was already that was the last thing, right?
Yeah, well, they had Ultimate, and then there was like a couple small patches. That was
Uh,
really it.
okay. Well, with the release of that, I kind of figured that was definitely the foreshadowing of things to come because that usually has seemed to been the thing, like MKX. Then they released MKXL, dead game, and
Yep.
then
Justice
Injustice
2,
2,
then the
they had
Legendary Edition, and then
yeah, dead game. So
Yeah, I
when
think
I
they did
saw
that with the
yeah,
original Injustice 2. Where they, not Injustice 2, but Injustice Gods Among Us. They had like a Game of the Year edition or something like that. Dead game.
uh, yeah, so I kind of felt like it was coming eventually. But yeah, it's nice when a company can just say, "Yeah, this is it. We're already moving on to other things," because you can only be there on Twitter asking for Combat Pack 3 for so long.
I just wonder what it was like being Ed Boon, to just be every day being just like, "Where's Combat Pack 3? When are we gonna get this character? When are we gonna that?" And like
I don't
literally
think
not
he
being able to
gives a
say anything.
fuck. I don't think he cares. You can tell just because he keeps tweeting, right? He kind of does it to himself. I just generally don't think he gives a shit about. Like it doesn't bother him, or he just mutes it, or
I mean,
just
quite
whatever.
frankly, I feel bad for anybody under the employment and are publicly announcing it under the employment of NRS because pretty much I know I would joke about this during some Discord chats, but somebody could just be tweeting like maybe what they're eating for dinner, like enjoying a nice steak dinner, and then some randos would be like, you know, Combat
Rambo
Pack
needs
3
buffs,
win.
right? Or
Yeah,
where's her
yeah,
at?
Rebel, yeah, exactly. It's like, come on. Come on now, read the room.
Read
Read
the
the room.
room.
Go away. Get in the corner.
Yeah, that's
So I think one of the most important parts of that tweet was how they made a point to say that they had supported it for than 2 years, which was something that was promised really early on. And
Yeah.
shout outs to Jay Glees. I watched his kind of breakdown of it, and he doesn't seem very happy about it at all. And he was very quick to say it wasn't fucking 2 years. It's literally been 2 years since you released the game at a time that you said that it was dead, right? Or not dead. I want to stay away from that term because,
you can still
people can
play
still
it.
play the game. It's just
Yeah.
not whatever. But they haven't done anything that laughable balance patch from like last December, right? And the game came out in March of 2019. So it hasn't even been 10 years. So I think there's things to consider, like the pandemic and things like that. We obviously have like an asymmetrical roster list that seemed like there may have wanted to be. Was that Loot? Shout outs to Loot. Did he join the call?
Shout outs to Loot.
Test. Hello.
Test.
Hello.
All right. Well, we'll let him have. We're talking about the tweet. I'm sure you've got something to say. But anyway, the whole 2-year line and people comparing it to like Injustice and MKX or whatever, and like there's a difference between the 2-year cycle, like they come out March or April, like every 2 years. That's MK9 in 2011. But they had never said, like they had said earlier, that they were going to like not just break the release cycle, right? But they were going to be supporting the game more than 2 years, which they did not, unless you count a fucking tweet acknowledging it or something like that, because the last thing that they touched was last December. And to another point, for Mr. Glees or whatever, it's like plenty of people bought this game under that impression it was going to be supported for a long time. Like they definitely had at least inferred the way that they were talking about it. This was going to be something maybe a little bit more like what Street Fighter had done or Tekken had done, right? Where we're going to get like multiple iterations, combat packs, a lot of support over a long period of time. Like, don't know if it's a 3-year game, a 5-year game, or like whatever, but for it to like barely, it didn't even reach 2 years before they just stopped doing anything about it. And they were even saying today, so it still says if you look at your characters or whatever, you've got 9 out of slash question mark brutalities or skins or whatever, and they're not going to even update that.
We'll forever know how many brutalities we could have had.
Well, I mean, the point is that they've just kind of been like they're not doing shit, right? Like the servers are going to stay up for the rotations and the towers and all of that stuff, and that was been kind of like what I've used to point out historically is like by support. So this is even like a year ago, right? When they say supporting for more than 2 years, does it just mean that we're going to get another Combat League season or a new skin or fucking new Tower of Time? What great support! What great new content to add! I'm so glad the game's still alive, like sort of stuff. But we are one corner of that, fan base, right? We have the more of like competitive mindset. We care about balance. We care about tech.
And I think we're in the minority.
Tournaments and stuff like that. We're not just, just chilling and killing time with homies, like using as a party game or whatever.
I don't really know what's going to happen with Combat League because they said that they were going to cycle all of the season 1 again, but like, is that just going to continue to cycle? It's going to be.
I don't even care.
Is it going to be like? I'm just thinking of like. Because I was really stoked when the game came out about collecting all the skins and the costumes and the items and stuff like that. And like, I played Cetrion for like a year and a half, and I have like maybe 60% of this stuff. So like, I just think of people like that who are playing through the game. Like, how do you're just waiting for like Chronica chests? Are those even happening?
I mean, hey, while we're on the topic, shout outs to Cetrion, which made it the entire game's life without a single fucking nerf, and like now that 50 health
50 health
from the last patch, like that was gonna. Do anything about anything, but
yeah, that it's just sounded so tone deaf that last patch. I just
are y'all gonna go off about that? How the final, because that was the final patch so far, right?
Yeah,
and that's all it was. Is like
it also came out immediately. It came out immediately after that Twitch thing where they had all the non-NRS streamers like playing it, right? And remember that one streamer started crying because she was so frustrated she didn't know what to do about Shiva Stomp, so they fixed the Stomp and a couple other things, but it wasn't even a patch, right? There was no download or anything. It was everything that they could just tweak on the server side, right? That didn't require anything new assets to be downloaded or anything like that, and so maybe that was indicative they were already pretty much done, right? And they just kind of like put something together, but who knows on a business side what needs to happen, and with PSN and Microsoft and all that bullshit to get a patch up and all that other stuff.
So I actually do want to talk about the patch a little bit, but before we get into that, Loot, did you have what were your initial thoughts on the announcement when they said that they're done supporting the game, basically?
Well, I thought it was kind of obvious, so I wasn't really surprised. I was actually more surprised that they said it.
That's what I
think we're all like on the same page on that one.
Yeah.
If I was NRS, I wouldn't have said anything because now people are just more mad than they were before.
Yeah. At least they can
about these tweets. I think something must have happened or something went wrong. And also, they should have spaced out KP2. But first of all, I think they probably had more plans. They just recently removed a DLC file from SteamDB on like June 9th.
Oh, that's interesting.
So,
This is why I told you to invite Loot. He knows all of that.
Loot's in tune. Loot's in tune.
and we don't know what happened. You know, COVID happened. This will also slow down the development of the next game, by the way, which I don't think they will announce this year. I honestly don't think so, probably because of COVID. And yeah, if they spaced out KP2 more, then honestly they would have reached the 2 years. I don't know why they keep releasing, Aftermath and KP2 as like one pack and then it's done. That's why the wait for KP2 felt so
So
bad
fucking
because
long, yeah.
we just
And in
had
Justice,
6
we had
months of
one
nothing.
character a month, right? It was one character a month. So you're going to get 4 characters in this fighter pack or whatever the fuck they called them in Injustice 2. And it was one character per month. Like for the last one, Enchantress in January, and then Adam in February, and then the Turtles in March, and then they were done.
Yeah,
And
but
so
at the
that
end
was
of the day,
almost 2 years. Or no, that was almost 1 year of support. Because that game came out in April of 2017 or May of 2017 and stopped getting update. That last balance patch was like barely a year, if not just shy of a year.
but at the end of the day, I'm not too mad about it. We got 12 DLC characters.
Yeah, I
There's
mean,
probably the one that has the most, but like, if you look at Tekken got 15 in 4 years, and Smash got 11 in 2 years, I think. So it's not too bad. You know, people are acting like this is like the end of the world. You know that we got no DLC. That's not true.
yeah, like one thing that I've noticed across all of the the NRS games is that what the character select screen always kind of fills itself out, and in this instance it didn't, and looked like it could have fit one more combat pack in there to make
There's
it an
space for
even
5 more
square.
characters, 2 on the
Yeah.
top, 3 on the bottom.
So I mean, that was a kind of indicator to me that they had more that they wanted to do and just didn't get it done because all the other character select screens filled themselves out. But what exactly happened there is unclear. I mean, COVID did a whole bunch of shit, so like to say it's
Yeah.
100%
Well,
NRS's fault, it probably isn't fair. But
there's a few things we know, right? We know that obviously there's been a global pandemic that has affected things. We also know that remember before Evo of 2019 when we were all expecting the Nightwolf gameplay, and then it was all like really radio silent about it, and Ed Boon actually tweeted that sorry for the lack of communication, it's not our fault or it's out of our control or like whatever, and everyone was like, oh, okay, so it's exactly as I expected. Those WB assholes are keeping them from doing that, or whatever it is, whatever the real reason is. Plus, we know that Time Warner, the parent company of AT&T and Warner Brothers and all of that, they've been going through some changes, and there's been speculation about what they're doing with like their gaming branches and all of their other assets and stuff like that. So the fact that they're even communicating, and we know all this other stuff's going on, do you think the WB thing is actually over?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, now that that is all settled and they've kind of figured out what's going on, then yeah, maybe now
they
they're
had a
able to say
contract for
things.
5 games. They only have 4, but then there's also this whole reshuffling of what's happening on the Warner Brothers side. So who even knows what could have impacted?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that kind of freed them of their last obligation in the game or something, and now they're able to kind of talk about things a little bit more. I don't know. I think we'll the next little while will kind of show us what's a little bit more into what's going on. If we see more kind of communication and that kind of thing coming out of NetherRealm, then maybe that would be reason to think that something like that maybe happened. I don't know. Anyways, unless anyone else has anything else to say on that topic, let's go into the last patch. I have the patch notes in front of me here. And the very first thing on the list, which is funny that you kind of alluded to, was Shiva now has 950 health, down from 1,000.
Yeah.
Shiva or Cetrion?
Shiva. Now, then the second line is they slightly narrowed the hit region for Drag and Drop. So you were,
Sadly.
yeah, they did. They balanced that very, very poorly. As you were mentioning the one girl who was crying and didn't know what to do.
I mean, I wonder if they were, and I'm not trying to rail on that streamer at all, right? I think that was a really big wake up call. We've all been dealing with all this shit, and now that it's like that whole streaming event, that Twitch event was like free advertising for the game. Please come play our game, and then you just saw that sort of like bullshit going on. Like, I
Yeah.
bet they were fucking embarrassed for themselves. Like, oh Jesus, what do we? Paulo, get Paulo in my office right now. Like,
Yeah, so I mean, I think they could have balanced Shiva in other ways that didn't absolutely destroy that move. Like, it was annoying, don't get me wrong, for sure, and it was now it's kind of useless. So I don't.
well, look what they did to Captain Cold, right? So the Captain Cold versus Catwoman matchup or whatever, and Captain Cold got nerfed. Like, they didn't know what to do with him, and so they just nerfed him to complete unusable dog shit. But then
Right.
they brought him back later. They figured out a way to do it later, and he ended the game being, a decent character or whatever. But they did kind of just go overboard. Like, we got to do something. We don't know what to do, so we're just going to completely gut him. And I feel like that's what they did with Stomp.
Yeah, and
But now we're not in a position for a readjustment to try to find that sweet spot about,
Yeah.
and that's always kind of been the NRS curse, is like MK9, they overpatched and changed things like way, way too much. They did the same kind of
MKX.
similar thing with
Yep.
Injustice Gods Among Us and MKX. Then Injustice 2, they kind of took it down a little bit, and then MK11, they really drew it back. And it seems like it didn't matter which game you were playing, you weren't happy with how they were balancing the game. So I think it's just like a never gonna win kind of thing. Everyone thinks that they can balance it the perfect way, but I mean, balancing a whole game like that with, only a limited amount of team members must be tough. So it's hard to find like a middle section what they should do. Like, I don't know how other games balance. I've never really paid attention to the balance of anything but fighting games, so I don't know if there's maybe a better strategy they could adopt. I don't know.
We can also gauge like the rough time frame when they started developing their next game, because when people like Danish left and they started hiring people for Unreal Engine 4, that was probably when they started development or production on their next game, and that was way before this patch. So NRS is usually the kind of company that puts all their resources into their next game. Their games are not low budget projects, so they really have to put everything on one project. So it's even surprising that they still did this patch, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And they probably didn't put too much thought into it. Let's be honest. I mean, we can see.
So
As it is, I think that's a
Etrion
definite
Tornado is going to
tell.
be that way for eternity.
So yeah, so we got the Shiva. That was all that changed with Shiva. Joker lost 50 health. Cetrion lost 50 health. They slightly nerfed the tornado, but I mean it's still very obnoxious.
Yeah, they nerfed the chip, which was actually something that I think Aziz had like a tweet about it. In one of the tournaments where Cetrion did like 1 million chip damage, I think it was Dragon or the other one. And I think that's probably why they nerfed the chip damage of it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone
Not gonna lie,
hated.
it might be just that tweet.
It was like half the health bar or some shit like that, like 450 damage. Paulo has rationalized the health nerfs before, because the first characters to get their health reduced by 50 and was the same patch where characters got their health increased by like 50 or 100, like Kotal Khan. Shao Kahn got like some extra health, but what Paulo had said on one of the combat casts is that, I mean, the point, it's not a lot at first glance or something like that, but the idea is that it would take away their opportunity for another, like, just say like a face-to-face like poke situation or something, right? Like Cassie could not survive that where another character could, because she's got 50 less health. That's really the only reason they'd implement something like that. Just one less scenario, like one less poke situation.
Poor Cassie. I see why you quit the game early there, Shiro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think health changes are bad, but they shouldn't be the only solution. I mean, if you look at every other game has different health values for characters, right? Like Guilty Gear characters survive longer or not longer. Same
Or
with
they take more
Street Fighter.
damage. It's not that they have less health, right? They take more damage.
Yeah, like we could look at I think a prime example right now being like Chip, because Chip can do some ridiculous ass damage, but can't take a hit, and it
Right,
would
glass
probably be a bit
cannon,
too
like,
busted.
and
Yeah,
the
if
the glass cannon archetype exists in like literally every single game, like where it
yeah.
has the possibility to exist, whether you're playing an RPG or a fighting game or whatever. The glass cannon is a very historic sort of archetype.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think Joker as a glass cannon, for example, would probably work, but they need to change other things. They can't just change him to. That's not even a glass cannon, like 50 less health. No,
Right,
like
right.
either
Yeah,
do it, like full stop, or don't do it.
exactly. Like there has to be, um, there definitely has to be flaws. Like bringing up Chip again, like some of his moves, at first kind of look like, holy fuck, how do I react to it? But there's ways that you can, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I think that if they were gonna go that approach with like Joker or Cetrion, they just drop him down like 800 health. Like that would be a significant amount of health. I think that would make sense, but I don't think the 50 health threshold is enough per se. Characters like RoboCop, where they actually gave him 50 more health, I think that was a good one because RoboCop was like he wasn't like the greatest, but like I think he was better than a lot of people thought he was, and like giving him that extra health was just a little bit of a bump that he needed to kind of get to that next level, right? And then you saw people having quite a bit of success with him after that.
I mean, speaking of RoboCop, that just reminds me of Command Grab and then the flamethrower and all that stuff, which was something that came up with customs. Remember when they did the customs patch and they're like, you know what? They kind of like banned a couple moves or whatever, but they just wanted to unleash it on the world, and they said then they would just see where the dust settled and kind of adjust it afterwards, which they never did do. So
Right.
I think they had plans to do that. Then it's just like, well, what do you do? Like, I think we all need to stop backseating them, like trying to pretend that we understand how businesses run or what their priorities are, or like whatever. I mean, we are a consumer and we did buy their product and they want us to buy their next one. So we are absolutely entitled to opinion. But there is like that other side of stuff. But that's where like the lack of communication and stuff, you know,
Yeah,
can
100%.
be so frustrating. Not like I want to see your fucking books, or whatever. What's your budget? What's how much PTO you giving your devs? And
Hmm.
I think you could squeeze out another DLC character here, all things considered. Like that's not like what I'm asking for, but
Yeah, I'm
I
just
don't know.
I mean, we do know that they crunch.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
there's been rumors about that. That's for sure.
crunch
They're
be
not
bad.
lazy, and they're probably also not lying on purpose. Like something must have happened.
Yeah, there's a conspiracy happening. We don't know the details.
But get your aluminum tinfoil hats
Oh,
ready.
I
water's
mean,
turning the frogs gay.
do we want to talk? Do we want to speculate about what their next project is going to be? I know they said before MK11 came out, right? Like, and there was one more game left in the WB contract, and after that, they wanted to try something new.
So
Yeah.
yeah, let's talk
Do you
about
think that's
that.
what they're doing right now? If the W thing is going south, or do you think we're getting an Injustice 3, or do you think the Marvel hints are just trolls, or everyone's talking about Marvel versus DC or a Marvel game, or
So I do want to talk about the next game coming up. I just want to finish talking about the patch here first, and then let's get
oh
into
yeah,
that.
sorry, I'm getting ahead of
No, that's okay.
where
That's
we
okay.
stopped. Joker.
So Joker, Cetrion, Fujin looked like there was a really small hitbox thing. I don't know if that was an issue or something that was. Or I don't, not a Fujin expert. I think you played Fujin for a while, didn't you, Loot?
Yeah, I don't know what that changes though. That's like down 3, right? I don't know what.
Yeah, it didn't make
I
any
never,
sense.
I never saw what this actually changed.
Then there was a couple things with Rambo, who I think it was universally accepted that Rambo was the worst character in the game,
I
right?
think so.
Yeah, I think that was.
Rambo and Melina sitting down there at the bottom.
Yeah, they got their
Yeah.
own special little tier. But I do want to talk a little bit about tier lists after the next later on. Anyways, I think the real winner of this patch is Shao Kahn. Like from playing some Shao Kahns, holy crap! Did these changes ever help him? Like I think they probably did the best buff job with Shao Kahn than I think any other character in MK11. Like he's effective now. He has what he needs. He has some actual mind games off of his forward 3 now. So
Most Shao Kahn
You
mains will
gotta
say
give
that it
some
still
people.
wasn't enough. It was some good changes or whatever, but he's still kind of.
I mean,
Yeah,
you
and I
you
think
you gotta let the boss characters have some type of juice, right?
yeah, that's
It can't completely be shit.
your pre-order bonus too, right?
Yeah.
Oh, the good
I've
old
also
pre-order
seen
bonus.
I've also seen a lot of people say, "Oh, this is just a cheap fix. They just made him have like a launcher that's safe stuff." But I mean, honestly, he needs it. He needs it, and he's still not top tier. So, what's the issue here?
Yeah, yeah.
Let him be the brute that jumps with his hammer and like launches you if you don't lock.
Yeah, and it's safe, so he can just
Fun.
fly over your projectiles, and then he's just safe in your face. But yeah, that's basically it for the last patch. It's the first like half of it that I read. It just seems like, okay, fuck you. You want us to change this? Fine, we're changing it. Here you go. What do you think about that, huh? And after that, they had some good, meaningful changes. But yeah, rip Shiva, unfortunately.
I have a question. This never came out as a download patch, right?
No, this was
Never.
like a hot fix, I think.
Oh,
this
we talked
doesn't
about that
even.
before you joined. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought at this point they would have done it, but I guess not.
Yeah,
Well, the part of like I kind of touched on that, right? Is that kind of tying into like they had already kind of like moved on to their other project sort of thing? Because to get a patch up on the Microsoft store and the
Right.
PS4 store, who knows what that takes, right? And maybe they didn't have the
you gotta go through
resources,
approval.
they
It
didn't want
costs money
to
and
pay
time.
whatever.
Yep.
So they just did what they could just on the server side.
So if anybody plays offline, this just isn't active. That's weird.
Yeah, I guess if you mine, it'd be the same as if you just put a plugged it in and played like day one MK11.
Oh no, not day one.
I mean, if you weren't connected to the internet and you just put the disc in, wouldn't
No,
it be
I mean,
different?
if it was a fresh install, right? But let's say that you have downloaded everything that's possible, but you had not.
Yeah, the
Like, I don't know.
hot
Does it-
fixes are only active while you're connected to the internet. That's how hot fixes work
Oh,
in
I didn't
every
know
game.
that. I actually
So
didn't
if
know
they
that.
go to if they go to CEO and this is not enabled from what I
Oh
can tell.
no.
I didn't even think of that. Oh, that's interesting.
I mean,
Oh.
there's one way to tell, right? We all have PlayStations. Well, I guess if you have Mortal Kombat installed,
I
I guess you should try to do it.
Like who
Who here wouldn't have the game on it?
I was
I
saying
know that
earlier,
Dink
I
has
haven't
it.
had it installed in a while. I got my PS5 like in March or something, and I never even downloaded it.
Yeah, I think that speaks volumes to kind of the conversation we're having in general. But
Oh,
that being said, any last thoughts on this patch? That was a good last point there by Loot. But then other than that, I'm going to test that as soon as we're done here, and then we'll log off.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that they didn't kill characters. I know that a lot of people want them to kill characters, but I'm at least happy that they didn't.
Yeah.
Maybe more nerfs would have been better, but please don't literally kill characters.
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
seen that over the years, but they just have a top tier go straight to the fucking bottom so fast. I don't know how that happens, but I guess they just don't put enough time in QA, or maybe somebody finds something out that they didn't see. I don't know.
I think they want a little bit of everything, right? They want to make a game that's going to make the casuals happy, and they want a game that's going to be competitive, and they want to be involved in like the pro competition or whatever it is that they were calling it, all of that stuff. But it's like nothing they were really doing balance-wise seemed to indicate that they cared so much about the tournament circuit or any of that. Like they obviously put a lot of time and money into like, especially the online ones once the pandemic started and stuff like that. They didn't need to do any of that. But as far as some of their decisions about what they're doing with the game, it doesn't seem like that scene was considered very hard. Like just lucky to get the circuit, some of the pot money for that. But
Right.
Although
I don't know. Do you want to be
pre-COVID,
a party game, or do you want it to be competitive, or do you want to find a nice balance where it's both?
pre-COVID definitely had better patches. Like the first year, definitely had better patches.
Yeah.
I think
Then
honestly,
after
I think
Aftermath, got nothing.
as I say, I think that's kind of one of the most difficult things too is that NRS is clearly going to be getting a whole lot of shit. But there's also the what could this have been without COVID?
Yeah, that's always the question mark, right? You know, like
Yeah.
being like the league champions in a sport the year of COVID, like there's always that asterisk next to it, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
except
You could argue that Street Fighter got characters, but you also have to remember that NRS games, the budget is crazy. What they actually produce when a character comes out is absolutely insane. You can't really compare it to Street Fighter or Tekken because honestly, those games are low budget projects for Capcom and Bandai Namco respectively.
Yeah.
And that's also why, NRS can actually afford to make games that quickly because they just pump so much money into it.
That is
Yeah, and they
like,
get a lot of sales, when
Yeah.
they come out because they have a very wide market.
yeah,
Well,
like
and that's an argument that people are pointing out for like the 2-year cycle and stuff like that, right? Like, why would we support and try to make money through DLC when we can just get everybody $60 or PS5 $80 or whatever all over again for a brand new game that they know that people are going to buy?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
those
also
are clearly not the competitive players.
the casual players that buy this game, which is probably the most people, I mean, which is definitely the most people, they're less likely to buy DLC compared to someone that buys Tekken, because most people that buy Tekken probably play it like online
right.
or competitively offline. So they're more likely to buy DLC compared to an NRS player, right? Or compared to like a casual MK fan.
Yeah, that's a good point. Who's got all the knowledge?
Yeah.
Shouts to Luke. So that being said, we will put the nail in the coffin on the final patch. Rip. Anyone have any speculation on what their next project is? Let's start with Loot.
I think Injustice 3 is still the safest bet, even though there are those quote unquote leaks. I call them rumors. I know some people try to sell them as facts, but the rumors about Marvel, I don't know.
Wow, way to call out Rooflemonger, Loot.
Yeah. I mean, I responded to him on Twitter saying that was Marvel. I said it was a rumor, and then he basically said it was a fact, which I don't think it is.
I haven't seen any
he-
proof to show that it's a fact other than
I don't
Ed
think
Boon
that
saying.
he believes it's a fact. I think that's just the way he talks online.
He's
It's
just
very
trolling.
tongue-in-cheek
Yeah.
or whatever. If you've seen him post anything, well, he's already declared himself the best Gold Lewis player in the world or whatever, and the character is not even confirmed to come out. Like, it's just the way that he talks, and it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I just think that Injustice 3 is like the safe bet. Even considering the split, like I think believing that they will stay with the brand is probably also the safest bet. I mean, it's kind of a 50-50, but that's just what I believe.
Yeah, that's fair.
I also don't like Marvel.
okay, well, that might have been good info from the get-go, but bias
No,
Loot
it's
over here.
Marvel.
Shiro, what about you?
Oh, I mean, I would prefer it be Injustice 3, unless Supergirl's not in it. Fuck that game then.
Damn, it'd be like
I
that.
know.
It'd be
Yeah,
like that.
but I mean,
She's
I've seen a
wildly
lot of
popular. I'd be surprised if she wasn't in it if it really is Injustice 3.
yeah, right. Plus the way the story ended. I mean, come on.
I just think she was probably one of the most popular characters in the entire game. If they were looking at their metrics, I've never seen them, but I
Yeah.
would imagine she's just way up that list.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah,
Anyways.
yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, Shiro. Is that all?
That's cool. Well, no.
well, no, frankly.
No. Yeah, so I would really like for Injustice 3 to be it, but I have seen where people would like to see them kind of branch away from a fighting game, and I think that's fair. I think even Ed Boon has said that they would like to try to leave that, try to head a different direction. If they were to make something kind of like Shaolin Monks, that would be kind of neat. It doesn't even have to be Mortal Kombat. I mean, they could probably if they could do something with like in the Injustice universe, kind of like that. That'd be kind of cool as well. Um, as for the Marvel rumors, I don't know. That kind of seems like a bit weird for me, just because every time I think of a Marvel game, I immediately think of Marvel vs. Capcom and that type of style. I'd be willing to check it out, but wouldn't say it's on my list of preferred items. Hopefully, see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair. Cool. Hater?
I have no idea. I would imagine it's Injustice 3.
No.
I don't really see any, like, I have no clue. You ask me, like, what I want. I don't want a Marvel. I don't want, what I absolutely do not want is a Marvel versus DC. And I've talked about this in Discord a bunch, and then in my locals Discord and stuff at all. We had a really long conversation about it the day that they announced that they were going to stop supporting Mortal Kombat 11. And if we end up with an MK versus DC, let's say that we've got, so what, MK11 has 37 characters with all the DLC, so launch roster of like say 30 characters. If that's split down the middle, and then 5 or 6 are automatically going to get taken up by like the most oversaturated superheroes. Granted that they're like popular and stuff, right? But
Right.
that was part of the charm of Injustice 2 is having some of the more obscure characters or whatever. It's not just like, oh, Superman again, Batman again, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, you know, the Justice League basically. And then on the Marvel side, it would just be all the Avengers that we've been staring at in movies for like the last 10 years or whatever. It's like, I want to
Right.
see, like,
Oh god,
if
that's
Marvel
something
is involved,
I
if it is
forgot.
going to be like a Marvel game, I don't even want a Marvel game. I'd prefer like an X-Men game. Like, I feel like all of the most interesting Marvel characters to me personally are all X-Men or X-Force.
Yeah. Fuck. I was gonna say that reminds me of something, but I can wait until Hater's done.
I mean, I basically am. I don't know like what it could be. Like,
Cool. Because
well,
what I was gonna go with is that reminds me that another reason why I usually don't get very excited for a lot of Marvel things nowadays is because almost everything has to force feed you the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which I don't
exactly.
really think is that interesting. And then it's also awkward too because most of the time they don't even have the fucking licensing rights to make them look like the fucking actors
Yeah.
that these characters are popular for now. Like look at that fucking Square Enix game that just looked
Yeah.
so bad when that came out. And
Look at the roster for Marvel versus Capcom Infinite versus Marvel versus Capcom 3 or something like
yeah,
that. And that's exactly what happened to Infinite, right? It's like, no, we just need all the movie characters, right? So you
exactly.
basically you get Iron Man and you get fucking Rocket Raccoon and you got like I don't know, I'm not super familiar
Yeah,
with
it's
that
like
game.
they couldn't put the X-Men in there because technically Marvel didn't have the rights to their own fucking characters.
No, yeah, because when they almost went bankrupt years earlier, they sold them all to Fox. That's why all the X-Men movies are Fox movies. But they got those
Yeah.
back recently, right? But who knows when we'll start seeing anything from that. But I don't. What do you think it's going to be, Tinker?
Well, if I were to, so there's a couple ways of looking at it from a business perspective, money making perspective, which WB is definitely they want to make the monies. Marvel versus DC makes a lot of sense, and I'm not looking forward to that for the same reason that you guys are. Is that like I
Yeah, that'd be
don't,
my last choice.
I
Yep.
you know it's going to be all the Avengers versus like freaking
The fucking Justice
the
League.
Justice League,
Yep.
and then
Like,
you're
oh, Wonder Woman again. Awesome.
yeah, you're not going to get any of the cool obscure characters. I didn't even know who Firestorm was before Injustice 2. The only reason I played him is they're like, yeah, he plays like a zoner. So I was like, oh, sweet. He never did. Which is, well,
There's no way Enchantress would make it into like a Marvel versus DC
Oh,
with
not
like
a
a limited
chance.
roster like
Yeah.
that.
But like now I have like Firestorm comic books and I know a lot about the character and I'm really thankful that I played a character that I didn't know. So something like that would, like you guys said, I don't see it being any different than just like Justice League versus Avengers kind of thing. So I wouldn't really want that. Another thing that I'm worried about is with the Marvel aspect is kind of what Shiro touched on there was like having like the crazy like air combo, blah blah blah, the crazy. I just don't like the play style of that game. I've played it for a little bit. Didn't take me long to realize it's just not for me. That being said, I don't think they would go that route with the play style because they're just
Yeah.
they're not optimized to make that type of game. I think it would be an NRS style with like Marvel characters. So that's kind of would be my guess. I'm not sure that they would really know. I think they would just run into all sorts of balancing issues if they tried to make a game like that. So ultimately, I think that if it's for the fans kind of base and they want to be hype on the DC side, then Injustice 3 just makes the most sense. Or an MK versus DC 2, which I would be open to because they didn't really have the funds to make a good one the first time.
Yeah.
So it was like it's so weird when you were talking about how much money and the budgets they have for this game because I remember being in the scene at the time, competitive scene was just online really for the 3D games and just hearing about how little money and they just had to scrape by to get this last game out so that hopefully WB would buy them up. So it was weird seeing what a low
Yeah.
budget product that MK versus DC was versus how much they have to work with now. So like given that they were so like that's a good idea MK versus DC, but now that they have the funds to do it, I think it would make sense that this is when they do it. And you have two Injustice games, you have two MK games. kind of the amalgamation of the two at the end, I think is actually a really cool idea.
It wasn't MK versus DCU technically the last Midway Mortal Kombat game?
Yeah, it was. So they quote unquote partnered with WB so that they would kind of
Yeah.
say like, "Hey, here's what we can do. Here's what we can offer you," kind of a thing. And then they
Mhm.
had an auction to buy Midway, and WB was the only one that put up any sort of an offer. So
Wow.
so they won by default. And then that's when
Sad.
they turned into NetherRealm Studios, and we got MK9 and blah 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 blah. So
uh, here's like an idea, or I guess more of a question, but what would be your thoughts if they were to do an NRS style fighting game? Now, it doesn't have to be if it's DC or Marvel or MK versus DC, but rather I'm just kind of thinking how this would work out. But if they were to do an NRS style game like they've usually done, but incorporate like a tag mechanic, well, how do you think that would work?
I mean, they did tag mode in MK9, so
Yeah.
yeah, I
Ah,
mean, they're familiar with the mode for sure.
okay.
That being said, it had horrendous balancing issues. Like, what do you think of how
Okay, so
broken that game is to begin with? Like, get
could
somebody
you
in.
tag out mid battle?
Oh, 100%. You could do like half
You,
of a Cyrax reset into the Quan Chi rune trap. Like,
yeah.
Wow.
yeah.
People were asking for that very early on because you kind of had pseudo tag like in the towers and stuff. So they knew that they kind
Yeah.
of built into it. And Derek Kurtzig had responded and said that the resources for the PS4, the current gen consoles at the time or whatever, like they couldn't load a full stage and 4 full characters and comprehensive movesets for them into one at the same time, right? So it was more of like a resource restriction.
I think
Not
if
that they
you
didn't
were
want to do it necessarily, but I remember that him saying that was like at the very very beginning of the release.
I think if they do end up with a tag mode, we're going to end up with a game like MK11 that's not like super deep and not a lot of combo paths, just to make it easier to balance.
So, that's another thing. One of the local guys here is like, I don't care what game they come out with. I just want to be excited to lab again. I just want a game that I can lab because MK11 didn't really have a whole lot of that, right? Not the way that Injustice 2 did, and not the way that MKX did, or even
No.
MK9, Justice 1, or whatever. Like, MK11 is super, super dry compared to the rest of their games.
Yeah, and it's a
As
nice
far as
game.
that sort of
Like,
stuff.
I personally enjoy how much neutral you have to play in MK11, and I don't mind the strike throw minutes. A little bit too focused on that, but like, I enjoy that neutral game. But like, I also do miss like labbing things and coming up with cool setups for like Raiden and Firestorm and Injustice 2, for example. You can sit in the lab for hours with them and find all sorts of cool things. So MK11 is like a little bit, it's quite a bit drier and watered down in that aspect, but I do like the more fundamental approach. Crushing blows are a nice idea that like it's trying to reward you for good gameplay, but they didn't balance them properly enough for them to not be just infuriating.
How many playstyle or character archetypes do we have in MK9 compared to the 37 characters on the roster, especially when you're considering any
Yeah,
other fighting game, including the ones that NRS have done themselves? Like,
yeah,
That meter
it's a
system.
dry ass basic game, for sure, in my opinion. And you
Uh,
can roast me for saying that if you want,
no,
like in the comments or like whatever. But
That's what they wanted to make.
yeah, they wanted to make it to be more competitive
that's
and focus on that, which really killed a lot of the casual funness to that game, I think.
Well, they said that very early on, right? And as soon as people got their hands on the stress test, they were like, "What are these dashes? You barely even move or whatever." So they adjusted all of that, and then they started doing like, I think they had an original vision for something like that, and then they realized it's like, okay, well, this isn't going to be accepted by the masses or whatever. And then they started making all these adjustments to the movement and the dashes and all of that stuff, and then wave dashing on top of the regular dashing, like the regular movement, right? That they'd already kind of like implemented, just kind of made for this clusterfuck of like whatever was happening. I think they lost their original bearings of what they wanted the game to be, and just started kind of making all these adjustments just based on that sort of feedback. And it
Right.
was kind of obvious that it was a little rushed, right? Still like on the 2-year cycle, and see how good looking the game is and how much it must have cost and the kind of time they spent into it, right? And then I think that's why we didn't get really the balance changes and stuff that we thought or whatever. Is like, what are they even going to do with it? I don't even
Yeah.
think they thought, I don't even think that they knew what to do with it, like at that point. And
I
it
think
kind
they
of
need to
strayed
get
away
rid
from
of
what they
that.
wanted to do originally.
They gotta get away from that automatic rebuilding meter thing.
Yeah, I
Dude,
didn't.
the
I didn't like
worst,
that.
like the
I would
only
say
thing Mortal Kombat did better than any other previous titles is that it looks better. The wake up system sucks ass. The meter system sucks ass. Attaching fatal blows, making a separate resource and rewarding you for getting hit, like just the combat factor or whatever, sucks ass. Like literally the only thing I can think about Mortal Kombat 11 that I enjoy more than Injustice 2 or MKX. It's just that it looks better. Except that I don't want to sit there for 45 fucking seconds every time someone wants to do a fatality or a fatal blow or something. Like, let's get that shit back down to, the 5 to 10 second region or whatever. The novelty's just worn off so fast.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I kind of agree with Dink that I like that it is more um neutral, and I guess you could say slower paced compared to MKX, because while MKX is fun, like also kind of like fuck trying to
It's
play that
terrible.
game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you blink, you die.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah,
I hate that game.
and I'm not one to complain about speed as I play anime fighting games too, but yeah, I like that MK11 did that, but a lot of stuff that's not very great. The meter system is very weird. I think if they want to have a defensive meter that rebuilds on its own, that's fine, but I don't think you should have an offensive meter that works
I
too.
think they did as an answer. So they've had a problem historically. This is a big problem in MKX and Injustice 2, right? Is that if you're a zoner, you build the fuck out of meter, right? Just from your
Mhm.
specials and all that stuff. And then you can do whatever you want, like in MKX especially, right? Everyone's fought the piercing Molinas, where it just dies all day until they've got the 2 bars and then just random ball roll and convert if it hits, and if not, you're just ready to break and then you reset the neutral, then you're just zoning all over again. Quan Chi with the meter, the meter, the meter. And so that kind of even things out. Like if meter builds up by itself, then you kind of lose that sort of lopsidedness. That was also in Injustice 2, right? Characters like Starfire or whatever, just meter all day long.
Right.
Mhm.
Where others struggled. But I think it was a good idea. I remember actually being kind of excited for it when they announced it, but in application and execution, no es bueno.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's I'm not a fan of the regenerating meter because one of my favorite things to do that I really kind of worked on my game plan from MK9 was working on ways to build meter and how you can be effective in building meter, and it was almost like a mini game within the fight itself. And when that was
Yeah.
taken away in MK11, I really was not a fan of that.
Plus, meter management is like a skill that you should have. A lot
Meter
of games.
management and then like combo pass and stuff, right? This is like, so that's a big thing in Killer Instinct, right? Do you end your combo for damage? Do you end it for the splatter? Do you end it with the battery that they call it or whatever, which is more of like a meter build sort of thing? So you sacrifice the damage, but you get more meter for like your next mix or like whatever it's going to be. So I like the idea of a lot more, and that kind of also watered down the gameplay. Another consequence of the auto generating meter.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, I don't know if any of y'all might happen to have the answer to this, but I do wonder how many, like, if the people within NRS, if they actually study like how a lot of the other fighting games out there work, or if they're just really looking at everything within a vacuum.
Good
You know.
question. I know that like Ed Boon has said before that he takes inspiration from other games, but I know that he's
Yeah.
not really on the design team as much, more as just the creative lead, right? So I don't
We
know.
we know that Paulo pays attention, right? Like they're always making jokes about how, you go into Paulo's office and he's got 15 Twitch tabs up or whatever, but that could just be his own games, that could be other sorts of things, but he's definitely looking. He's
Yeah.
Mhm.
definitely seeing how the game is being played and he's taking his notes or whatever, but then it's like even if he wants to change something, it's still got to go through the whole process or whatever. It's like 16-bit is talked about, and you hear all sorts of QA people talk about it. It's like just because there's a problem in the game does not mean that QA missed it. The chances
Yeah.
are QA actually caught it if you caught it, right? But they're not the ones that make the decision whether to fix it or not, or
Yeah.
how much
Exactly.
of a priority it is and stuff. So it could be stuff like that too.
I mean,
The
that was
same
the
with
whole thing with
anything.
the whole Cyberpunk fiasco. People were trying to blame QA, stating that you need to hire better QA people. It's like, don't throw them under the fucking bus. They're doing their
Right.
job. They're obviously, seeing this shit. there's someone in a fucking suit who then is making the call whether to act upon it or not.
Well, yeah, because it takes like payroll dollars to actually fix it, right? So whether that
Yeah.
who's
And there's
ever in
competing
charge.
priorities, right? Like, yeah, sure. So
Mhm.
there's this little glitch here or this little problem here or whatever, but we got much bigger problems or what we think are bigger problems, like just other priorities and maybe the next patch, and then there's not a next patch.
Exactly. Like some people don't seem to realize like how many gears are involved to make a video game because like I remember when somebody tried making that stupid argument, like this was just some random online interaction. I was like, "Hey, you obviously don't understand how the process of creating a video game works." And then they tried like attacking me, but like, "Oh, so just because I don't know how to code means I can't critique." And it's like, well, there's so much more than just coding a game and then having somebody play it to see if it fucking works. There's so many
Yeah.
things that are
Right,
involved
and
in
you
this
can critique, you
process.
can have an opinion, right? But have it be fucking informed, not just some
Yeah.
inflammatory, this is what I want, and it should be just easy because I am, a self-absorbed consumer that just I'm the kind of person that yells at the cashier at McDonald's because I asked for no tomatoes. They put tomatoes on it. Now I want to talk to the manager and I want 3 fucking coupons for 3 meals for the next time I come back or whatever. Like, what?
I love that
Dude,
analogy. Okay, Karen.
shit's frustrating. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
before we get too derailed here, because we could go right on. So let's say they have one game left, and then they're able to do whatever kind of game they want to make. What would your dream game from NRS be? And let's start with loot.
Um,
Elden Ring.
some
I'm
Elden
just
Ring is
kidding.
coming regardless.
Elden Ring tie-in.
Probably some kind of third-person adventure game.
Like
Mhm.
Shaolin
So
Monks
Elden
2.
Ring.
So Elden
Yeah, like an
Ring.
action RPG, that would be sick.
Yeah,
Our little
Shaolin
crypt guy,
monks.
only like way fleshed out.
Maybe with more characters. I mean, it could even be a DC game, although I think Warner Brothers right now has enough DC games going around. But yes,
Yeah.
probably some kind of third-person adventure action game.
Yeah.
You know, we kind of like the Crypt, but faster and like with actual combat and secrets, puzzles, all that stuff.
I miss all that stuff from like Deception, where like you had to be like behind a tent at 11:59 p.m. to find the secret chest that unlocked this costume for your
And
character.
maybe
We're
not
going
that.
from like realm to realm, right? Order realm and the chaos realm and all that stuff. That's cool, and they definitely have the aesthetics down, right? The way
Oh,
that they can
100%.
make things look and their artistic vision is, I mean, they're a AAA studio for a reason, and that is one of their biggest reigns, I feel like.
So what would you think, Hater? What would your dream game be by NRS?
MK versus DC Tetris.
Tetris.
Why?
I
wasn't
know. I
ready
have
for
no
that.
idea. I don't know. Like I don't
Hey,
even.
Puzzle
The thing
Fight
is
pretty
that I would
hype.
just I would want it to be a good game, and I'm not trying to use that as a cop out or whatever. If it's not going to be a fighting game, something with replayability, something that's not like, I don't know. I'm a big fan of action RPGs. Obviously, it's probably what I spend most of my time playing. So I would definitely love something like that done by them. It doesn't even need to be in the MK universe. Like a new IP, I have full confidence in. You see all the concept art and stuff that never even makes it into a game. Like they have just some of the most talented people out there. Like there's just no doubt in my mind that even if the game sucked, it would look beautiful. But I have no idea.
Shiro.
Combat cart. No, no.
Combat cart.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see them do something that's not a fighting game. I would be hella curious to see what they might be able to make that's not, you know, combat related. I kind of wonder if I might shoot myself with that type of
Yeah. No.
What? So
you know.
it better not be a battle royale or something. One of these.
Oh god, yeah. I mean, I'm just kind of curious to see what ideas they may have that's, just not, or maybe they could do something that's kind of like a spin-off or related within the MK universe, but doesn't focus around the main cast as much. As it's cool to continue seeing your favorite characters doing stuff, but it's also refreshing to kind of see another take on something. I mean, shit. If they were to do like maybe a third-party game that's like, or third-person game that focuses on the combat kids, that might be kind of nice. No,
Or even like, what
uh,
about like the Order Realm or Chaos Realm or something? One of these
yeah.
less explored areas where it's basically a blank template.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
that's the thing that, like, there's so much lore that they have left to like uncover. Like the fact that they went on like this continuous path from MK9 to MKX to MK11, like I get why they did that, but that's not the only option you have. Like you could go back to Adenia, like back when Jared ruled it, and like bring in a whole new cast of characters and tell the story of that and how Outworld invaded that and like how Order Realm started and Hotaru and Darius and all those characters that we haven't seen, and then the yin and the yang with the Chaos Realm and how those two have fought over the years. Like I didn't feel like they needed to continue that storyline. There's so much lore in the Mortal Kombat universe at this point that you could really just pick a place, go back to the start of whatever, and just tell that story from there. And then you can add in little details. Like one of the things was the Sindel recon, which is a lot of people were not happy about.
Yeah.
No, like arbitrary is arbitrary. Am I right?
Yeah, like you couldn't have
what
gone
the
farther.
just the worst decision in the history of decision makings of the franchise. Like what the fuck?
Like
Ugh.
that, yeah, that was the thing, is that she was loving mother turned evil, and then now she's evil all along. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it was
But
evil the
Well, we
entire
wanted to
fucking
put
time.
her like we wanted to make her more in depth or whatever. It's like you did the opposite of that.
yeah, you
Yeah.
just
Like,
totally wrecked it. Like, she had so much knowing that she was a completely different person at one
somebody
time.
binged Sons of Anarchy over one weekend, and they were just like, you know what? We need like a Gemma Taylor sort of thing. Who could do that? Oh, we could just make Sindel that.
Yeah,
Like,
Sindel
no,
could
that's
do that.
insufferable.
Yeah, poor decision making there. But like, and that's kind of what I would like to see, is like some story driven game that really goes back and tells the story of things that we don't really know about too
You
much.
just want Mortal Kombat 3 houses, Dink. Just say it.
If I could, 100%, like turn-based strategy game.
Actually, as you were like saying all that stuff, you bring up Adenia, like the wars and stuff. I'm just like, this is turning into a turn-based strategy game. Where
to be fair,
that would be kind of neat though.
and completely unbiased, I would love a turn-based Mortal Kombat game. I played so many hours of chess combat that like that would just be so cool, and having like areas of effect and stuff like that. I don't know.
Those things can be super addictive if they're done right. Like Civilization, like Civ 5, I have sunk like just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours into. I haven't played a game like that in a while. That's why I say Civ 5 and not 6 or anything that came after. But
right.
Yeah.
So I mean,
and with Mortal Kombat, I totally think that's possible too. Because like, let's just say we go into like Kingdom of Adedia or whatever. You could have like your fighters or champions, right? And they're all on the grid, and they're fighting like one of like fucking Shao Kahn's fucking lackeys, and I totally could see that
Mortal
working.
Kombat turn-based story game.
Yeah.
I would just wet my absolute pants. That would be my dream game. Oh my god. But sadly, I don't see that coming.
Just don't retell MK1 through 3 again.
Yeah,
oh my
we've
god,
already done that.
Yeah,
We've done that
I'm a little
already.
tired of that. Yeah.
They need to do more with the
like
Great
it.
Kung Lao, I think. There's like the Great Kung Lao keeps popping up all over the place, but they never really told this like his story kind of thing, I feel.
No, always references stuff. Let's say that they do end up with a Marvel game, right? And let's say that it is just like a straight Marvel game. Well, everyone, what's your wish list? Even if like say like 1 to 3 characters. You're a day one blank main based on whatever.
I would need like I guess she goes by Ghost Spider now, but like Spider Gwen. Need more Spider Gwen.
That would be sick, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I have no emotional attachment to Marvel, I would just play whichever character can zone. Assuming it's a fighting game.
I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I haven't.
Maybe Wolverine. I mean, that's very generic.
What, Wolverine? I mean, everybody loves Wolverine, right?
And he's Canadian, so I mean,
I just don't care about Marvel, to be honest. Oh, Deadpool is cool.
Marvel.
I like the movie.
Yeah, Deadpool's cool.
Yeah.
Deadpool. Marvel.
Judging just on the characters itself, I really don't know who I would pick. I mean, just generically probably Deadpool, not Captain America. He's a little bit too cut and dry for me.
But he would be in it for sure.
Oh, he'd be, yeah, they'd be dumb not to put him in. Same with like Black
They
He'll
would
Widow.
put him
reuse
in
all those
twice.
Wonder Woman assets. He'll have that projectile shield that nobody can do anything about.
Yeah.
Well, that was all that I had on the agenda for today. Rest in peace, MK11. Just kidding, it's not a dead game. You can still play it. But
There's plenty of
They're
games that
pulling
are
it.
still actively played that are no longer supported by their devs. I think the Killer Instinct is a perfect example.
Shit,
Still
that
a huge
Sailor Moon
community.
game on the Super Nintendo.
Yep.
People still be playing that.
it's all on-
Marvel vs. Capcom, the older Guilty Gears, even older Street Fighters. All sorts of people still playing games not supported by the devs, but it's up to
up to the player base. You make the decisions. You
you do, and
create the
either way,
legacy.
right? I wouldn't hold it against people if they don't want to. I saw Rewind getting a bunch of shit. That was like, okay, well, now what should I stream now that MK11's kind of off the
I
docket?
mean, still play.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Do make the ultimate pro move and just play Guilty Gear Strive. Just do that.
It's been a fun game.
Yeah,
I've been enjoying
ultimately,
Strive.
it's up to the person. If you enjoyed MK11 5 days ago, you're probably still gonna enjoy it now. Like
Yeah,
even
there's
though
always going
they
to be an
just announced.
audience too, because there's people whose first game has probably been
Right.
MK11.
Not like literally nothing's changed from like 5 days ago, except now that your Ermac for Combat Pack 3 tweet is super, super irrelevant and unnecessary. Even more so than it was 6 days ago.
Right.
But other than that,
Yeah. Other
the
than
game
that,
still works.
you can
And
still play it.
isn't it funny who pointed out that the crossplay never even made it out of beta? The game stopped.
Oh yeah, that was
stopped being
competitor, I
supported,
think.
and crossplay still in beta.
Crossplay is still in beta. Well, rip
Pepperoni and cheese to that.
stuck in beta
Fuck.
forever. The old cross, but can't even do King of the Hill crossplay. That was the most disappointing thing to me. And I was like, okay, well, that's just in beta, so they'll come out and then I can run a crossplay tournament. And nope.
Oh, especially with cross generation, it's so annoying.
Oh,
Yeah.
I can imagine. I could
Yep.
only imagine.
But yeah, people will still play Tekken, even though Season 4 looks to be the final season. You know, people will still play Smash Ultimate, even though the last DLC character comes out this year.
Yep.
But you can still play MK11. You can play Injustice 2. You can play MKX. You can play any
You
game
can
you
play
want.
whatever you want. And
People
plenty
are
of people.
still
You can still find
playing
games in
like-
MKX and Injustice 2. Just fine.
Yeah. People are still playing Third Strike and Super Turbo 2.
Yeah.
Fuck.
That's crazy. People are still playing Virtua Fighter 5, you know?
Are they though?
Japan.
I think that
in Japan they actually are.
you need to play the game that you're playing, not play the game that you. It's like a relationship, right? Like you marry the person for the person they are, not for the person they can become, or whatever. And I feel like that's what people have treated MK11 as, with all the bitching and all the hoping and all the balance and all of the whatever. But now that we know, like you're playing the game for like what it is, not in anticipation for some fix that you think should happen, or
Yeah.
as legitimate or not as that may be.
What a romantic
So-
sentiment. Put the
I mean,
nail
I
in the
don't fucking
coffin.
play Mortal Kombat 11, but if other people can.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. All right. Well, I guess that's the end of our discussion. Thanks for joining me today. This was fun. I'm glad we got to do this again.
Yeah.
GGs.
GG's.
Yeah, it's been a minute. When was the last one?
Probably
Is it
before
Aftermath?
Aftermath, I think.
Was it
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was a Mortal Kombat. Yeah.
Did we talk about the Mortal Kombat movie? Did we do Mortal
think we
Kombat movie
did.
one? I don't think we did.
Didn't
I
we?
wasn't there if we did.
Yeah. Time
I thought we
flies.
did.
The question
Oh.
is, when's going to be the next one? I mean, when are we going to get an announcement of anything other than what we got the other day, right?
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to keep waiting. Every
Probably
time there's gonna
taking
be
longer.
an event.
So the Game Show Awards in December of 2018 is when MK11 was announced, and Loot already said that he didn't think that there was going to be an announcement this year, but it is happening. The in-person Game Show Awards is like November or something, right?
Hmm.
December. Yeah,
December.
I wouldn't get my
So,
hopes up.
I mean,
not like the Elden Ring hopes up.
I was
thing,
going to
that
say,
finally
someone
paid
who
off, but-
waited around for Elden Ring for a while, I guess
And
you...
Dude,
so
let
who's
down
gonna make
after
the
letdown.
Twitter account of daily NRS updates?
I don't know. I don't think people care that much.
That was like their the pink slip on their desk was like, here's your final tweet. Thank you. So, but don't they recycle that account? Don't they change it like I think they changed it from like MKX to Injustice 2 and then from Injustice 2 to MK11. I don't know. I could be
Wait,
wrong.
that
Or they
existed?
make new ones. Is
Yeah, instead of making new ones, they just like rebranded the old ones.
that what they
It
did?
seems
I don't
fine.
know.
I think that's what they did, but I could be wrong. Don't have all the inside info, and I just thought I noticed that at one point in time, and I never actually went back to check. There could be an Injustice 2 NetherRealm account that exists, and I have no idea.
Yeah.
But anyways, that being said, thanks for you guys for listening to us talk about all things Mortal Kombat and a little bit Marvel and a little bit DC and a little bit crazy, you know. Been a fun hour and 4 minutes and 47 seconds as of right now. So that being said,
Shout out to Loot.
shout outs to Loot.
Shout out to Loot.
Always got to shout out
Subscribe
to Loot.
to Shujinkydink.
Hey, yeah.
Shout out to Shujinkydink.
Join the Patreon.
Join the Patreon
Yeah,
for
also
$1.
sub is Twitch. If you have Twitch Prime, it's free.
Yeah.
It's free. Use the Bezos bucks.
The
Give Dink
Bezos bucks.
Bezos money.
Fucking Jeff Bagels. I'll drop the Twitter links for all of our participants in the description of this video, so you can go and check them out, you know. And yeah, hashtag Bonehawks, all that stuff, and we'll see you guys in the next video.
Accept your death.